Well, hello. I've been home from the Cape Wrath Trail for about 2.5 weeks now, and I thought, as well as the videos that I've got documenting my walk, and also the video that I've done showing what I took with me, I thought I'd do a final video with sort of tips and reminders, and also use this to go through the two maps, showing you the route I took, giving you the pros and cons of the route, and also marking out some possible camp spots and things like that. So first of all, I thought I'd look at getting to and getting from the Cape Wrath Trail. Obviously you start in Fort William and you finish at the lighthouse in Cape Wrath. I had to put a stop in because I had to come home for family emergency from Ullapool, so I'll also talk about getting to and from Ullapool as well. I live down on the south coast. Could have taken a train up to Fort William, but that would have taken an awfully long time, so I decided to fly from Gatwick to Inverness. When you get to Inverness Airport, it's a little way out from Inverness Town Centre. There are regular buses from the airport to Inverness Town Centre, and also trains around once an hour. Bear in mind that the station's a 20-minute walk from the airport, so don't cut it too fine. There's also a train station in Inverness if you want to get the train up to Inverness. If you're going to go to the start of the Cape Wrath Trail, buses run from Inverness to Fort William, I think 3 or 4 times a day, and they take about 1 hour and 50 minutes. At the moment, the Scottish buses are doing a flat fare of £2 for any journey, which is fantastic value. When I went back to do the section from Ullapool to the lighthouse, I also got the bus from Inverness to Ullapool. Dead easy trip, again lasts about 1 hour 50 minutes, and again flat fare of £2. When I first started, I stayed in the Merthyr Hotel in Fort William, which I booked sometime in advance, about 3 months in advance. It was reasonably priced and good accommodation, and about 5 minutes from the little ferry terminal. The ferry over to Cwmysnagl leaves at 8 o'clock in the morning, 10:30 in the morning, 12:20 and 4:15, and also it says there's a 5:30 crossing by request only. Fare's £2, takes 10 minutes. It's pretty obvious where the ferry crossing is. It's pretty much opposite the Merthyr Hotel, or if you look up through town, it's probably opposite Wetherspoons as well, but pretty obvious. And then as soon as you get across the other side, basically you're starting the walk. When you get to the lighthouse, it's worth talking about how you get back, because that's quite interesting. Certainly at Kinlochbervie, and probably before Kinlochbervie, it's worth checking the times of the firing range in Cape Wrath. You won't get a good signal north of Kinlochbervie, and you won't get any signal at all from Sandwood Bay. If you go onto the gov.uk page, Google Cape Wrath firing times, you'll see it quite clearly. It wasn't being used at all in July or August 2026. They didn't actually put the August times up until right at the end of July, which was a little bit worrying. However, it was in use for the odd week or so in June and May, so it's worth looking at that. When you get to Sandwood Bay, bear in mind that the walk from Sandwood Bay until about 2 kilometres before the lighthouse is pretty hard going. It's pathless, the navigation's tricky, it's pretty boggy, it's very steep in places, and it's easy to think that you're making good progress, only to find you reach the top of a hill and there's no way down, which means you have to backtrack and do a sizable detour. There are also a couple of rivers to ford, which are quite tough if they're in spate. I left Sandwood Bay at 5:50 in the morning to ensure that I had enough time, and I arrived at the lighthouse around about 9:30. There comes a spot where you can see a sort of white building and the start of the 4x4 track, and from then on it's much easier, and the 4x4 track is pretty easy walking. There's a great cafe at the Lighthouse, the Ozone Cafe, which I think opens around about 9 o'clock. It's supposed to be open 365 days a year. It does really good breakfast, and they're absolutely massive. I had beans and egg and tofu on toast because I'm vegetarian. I think about 6 pieces of toast and enormous, couldn't finish it, but very, very welcome. To get back to Durness, you could walk the 4x4 track to the ferry. It's fine, it's about 12 miles, but there's no guarantee that the ferry won't be full when you get there. They'll probably pick you up on a second crossing, but it's slightly more dodgy. So the option that most people use is to book a place on the minibus. Stuart Ross runs the minibus. It seats 15 to 16 people, and it takes tourists to and from the lighthouse. He'll take you back to the Durness ferry if there's room. The service runs from the 1st of May onwards, 7 days a week, but relies on at least 6 return passengers to book. I rang him about 3 days before I arrived at the lighthouse. He didn't actually book me on, which was a bit of a worry, but he said he'd get me back, and he did. Ring him on 07719 544 207. The fare was £15 single. He had a card machine and he prefers card, but I took cash just in case. The minibus arrives at the Cape Wrath Lighthouse at 10:25 with tourists and leaves at 11:25. Obviously, if he's full of tourists, he'll try and fit you in on the next run, but that's not guaranteed. I think he runs a second service which arrives at 12:25 and leaves at 1:25. The minibus journey is very slow and bumpy, takes about 40 minutes, but you do get a bit of a guided tour of the route. The small ferry meets the minibus and will take you over for, I think it's £10 one way, but they only take cash, they haven't got a card reader, so be prepared. The ferry crossing takes about 10 minutes and is weather dependent, and it's operated by Malcolm Morrison. You can ring him on 07719 544 207 or ring Stuart on an alternative number 07534 591124. I think actually if you're on the minibus they'll pretty much guarantee to take you over on the ferry. There's more information if you Google visitcapewrath.com. As I said before, be aware there's little or no mobile signal from Sandwood Bay onwards, so ring from around Kinlochbervie. The ferry takes you across to Keeldale Pier, and there's a walk up to Durness, which is a couple of miles. I was lucky, I just looked tired and was offered a lift, which I gratefully accepted. There's an excellent campsite in Durness, the Sango Sands Oasis. I think it was £13.50 a night for backpackers. I tried to book online but wasn't successful, but at the start of August they still had loads of spaces for backpackers and seemed very relaxed. They had good warm showers, clean toilets, washing machines, a backpacker's room to cook in, but only a kettle available there, and an on-site bar that serves food. On the day I arrived, which was a Tuesday, they weren't serving food. It seems like the only day in the week when they don't serve food. But a food truck arrived. That was okay, but it was very pricey. I think I paid £10 for an okay burger. Durness also has a number of B&Bs, a backpackers hostel, and a good and well-stocked post office and spa that seems to be open all hours. To get back from Durness to Inverness, the 8:05 bus leaves from the bus stop just outside the spa at 8:05 in the morning, every morning I think, I'm not sure about weekends. Arrives back in Inverness bus station at 11:40. It was excellent value at £2 flat fare and a lovely local service. The bus driver obviously knew a lot of the people who were doing the trip. By the way, it's a long trip. They did actually stop at the public toilets in Laird, I think it was, as it was a long journey. The bus runs back from Durness through Kinlochbervie and Rechonich, so if you prefer to walk back there and pick it up there, that would be okay, but it's far easier to catch the minibus if you can, and saves horrible walk back from the lighthouse to Sandwood Bay. It's definitely worth booking that service, particularly during the busier summer months, and you can book up to 2 weeks before the date of travel. Contact or text 07782 110 007 with your name, the date you wish to travel, where you'll be boarding and your destination. I texted them and they were very responsive and friendly when I booked, and I got a reply saying I was booked on pretty much straight away. So that's getting to and from the lighthouse. Things to consider taking. Have a look at my videos about what I packed. I used pretty much everything that I took with me. Some things to reiterate: I would certainly take hiking poles. They're an absolute necessity for going up and down hill. They really help with your knees, and they're an absolute godsend on uneven terrain, and there's lots of that on the Cape Wrath Trail. And they're also great for probing boggy ground. They're also very helpful for river crossings. There are a good few river crossings, particularly one of the ones before you get to Reconic, where the river was quite high up to my knees, and without hiking poles I would have felt very uneasy. I also need them for my tent, so it was a no-brainer for me. I would really consider taking gaiters. I took knee-length gaiters. They keep your shoes and boots a bit more dry when walking through boggy ground and during river crossings. They help to keep ticks at bay, and they also kept my trousers moderately presentable when crossing muddy and boggy terrain. There's the argument about trainers or walking shoes. I use trail runners, Lone Peak Ultra 9s I think it was, and they were excellent. They were wet for almost all the time, but they do dry out moderately quickly. The downside is they haven't really got ankle support, but if I was doing the walk in, I would take trail runners again. If you go in June, July, August or early September, take a good midge net or possibly a midge suit. I took a cheap midge head net, which was rubbish, and a decent midge suit that covered my upper body. It's also worth taking a cap or a hat to keep these off the top of your head and away from your neck. If I hadn't taken my midge suit as I went back in late July and early August, I think I would have been driven mad by the midges. A smidge can help, but you do need a midge net. You have been warned. Even if you're navigating using a phone, I use OS maps on my phone, which I find excellent. Take a compass and know how to use it. I also took belt and braces, took a spare phone. It was an added weight, but it was a just-in-case item. Absolute necessity: take some form of satellite communication device with you. I took my Garmin InReach Mini 2. There are many places on the trail with uneven ground, and it will be easy to turn your ankle or even break a bone. Many of these places on the Cape Wrath Trail are without mobile phone reception, and I wouldn't dream of doing this trail without some way of contacting emergency services if you really need it. Obviously, check the device works before setting out, and check you know how to use it, and that the plan that you're paying for is live. It's also really helpful in places where you haven't got any phone signal to be able to send a message back to your loved ones every night, just saying you're safe. Just a note of caution: the week before I resumed the trail in July, the trail runner lost his life on the trail, so bad things do happen. Let's talk about water. I took 2 bottles with me, a standard sort of Decathlon 0.8 of a litre bottle and a smart water bottle. You don't have to have both bottles full all the time, because water's pretty much everywhere. The most I had to go between water stops was a couple of hours. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to get to rivers, even though you're walking alongside them to get to water, but you'll find water all the way. You always use the filter. I prefer taking a filter with me. I also took some water purification tablets just in case, but I didn't need to use these. Be aware that the water often looks quite brown even after you've filtered it, as it comes from peaty ground, but it tastes absolutely fine. Food and resupply packages. I took enough food with me so that I could ensure that I had a dehydrated meal each night. I also include sort of noodles in those as well, but I also ate out as often as I could, so I really don't like the dehydrated meals. I measured out porridge oats into separate plastic Ziploc bags. I added dried fruit and marble powdered milk and had one of these most mornings. And I also took a supply of chocolate bags and snacks with me. I created a spreadsheet detailing all my food. Hopefully I'll put a little snapshot of one in the video. But to save weight, I posted some resupply packages which contain dehydrated meals, porridge and treats to the following places. So there was Glen Shield campsite where I stayed, Achnashellach campsite where I stayed as well, and Allapool post office, which is part of the large Tesco's there. All were absolutely fine about this, and it was dead easy. In the resupply packages, I also put a plastic postage bag so I could post a few things home that I no longer needed. Be aware that the post office in Allapool and the Tesco's isn't open on Sundays and closes, I think, at midday on Saturdays. As I say, I hate the dehydrated meals, so I took any opportunity I could to eat out, and I ate at the following places. The Glenfinnan Visitor Centre, which was okay but expensive. The B&B in Kinlochhorn, pretty much the only thing in Kinlochhorn. I was lucky that they managed to fit me in. They serve meaty stuff, but I had a soup and a pudding. It's worth booking that if you want to eat there. The Kintail Lodge Hotel, which was okay but expensive. I also picked up breakfast at the Wee Bun Stop just outside the hotel, which was excellent. The cafe at Atterdale Gardens is a lovely cafe. You have to just pay yourself as a little donation thing, but it's well stocked as a cafe and it's beautiful, really comfortable. But do ask if you can go in without paying the fees to the garden. The two ladies there let me in, which was very nice of them. If you've got time, pay to look at the garden, which looks absolutely wonderful. I stayed at the Strathcarron Hotel and ate dinner there and had breakfast there. It was okay, but quite expensive. The Kinlochhew Cafe at the service station was excellent. There were loads of places to eat at Allapool. The Backpackers Hostel at Explorers Lodge in Inchnadamp was really good. They don't serve meals as such, but they've got a very good little shop which serves all sorts of things, and they've got a little freezer there, so I bought a pizza and a homemade pie, and they've got excellent facilities to cook them. They also serve beer there, which is great. The Rockstock Cafe in Unapool was good, and I went up a road, as I'll show you in a minute, to Cailescu. That was a good place to stop and eat. I stayed at the old schoolhouse in Inchegra, and they served dinner and a very good breakfast there, just as well as it's the only place to eat there. There are a few cafes in Kinlochbervie, but by the time I got there, it was a Sunday and they're all closed. And of course, the Ozone Cafe at the Lighthouse, well worth having something to eat and drink there. There are surprisingly few food shops on the trail. The ones that you can use, obviously Fort William has got a good superstore and other shops. In Kinlochhew, the service station has a good selection of food and drink. There's an excellent Tesco's in Allapool, which is really well stocked. And Kinlochbervie has a lovely little small but well stocked spa. but there are no other shops as far as I could see on the trail. Other little tips. I use the Cicerone guidebook for planning. Initially, before I walked the trail, when it said about distances, when it said 1 to 2 days for distances, I thought, oh, you know, I'm relatively fit. I've done quite a bit of walking. I might be able to do it in 1 day. After 4 or 5 days on the Cape Wrath Trail, I decided that if it said 1 to 2 days, I would take 2 days because it's tough walking. If you're young and fit, you might be able to do it in 1 day, but I didn't really want to knock myself out, and 2 days was okay for me. At my age, I find lots of days wild camping just too much. I think the most I could cope with is about 5. So think about factoring some stays at either campsites or bed and breakfast pubs. I stayed at the Glen Shield campsite, which I thought was excellent, had great showers, good washing machine, and there was food nearby. I stayed at the Accommodation campsite, which was lovely. They don't have showers, but they were very welcoming. You could check in pretty much any time you wanted. And they had a lovely room where you could sit comfortably and cook with a microwave and a kettle and everything like that. It was just really comfortable. I stayed at the Strathcarron Hotel, which was expensive and pretty basic. I had a single room, which was something like 130 quid, and it was a bit creaky. The food was okay, but it was expensive. They do have places for camping just opposite the hotel, so it might be worth inquiring about that. The Inchinadamp Explorers Lodge was really good. I think I had a twin room to myself for something like £85, which I thought was pretty good. It's also got a bunkhouse, and they've got easy facilities, good facilities to wash and shower. And as I said before, they've got an excellent, well-stocked shop and good facilities to cook. I stayed at the old schoolhouse B&B in Inchigra, which was nice, quite expensive, but the food was good. And the Durness campsite was well worth staying at. That was a lovely campsite, great showers and good facilities. These are just thoughts that occurred to me. First of all, don't kill yourself. The trail's really tough in places, particularly if it's wet, and the bogginess can get you down. So be prepared to be flexible and stop early and put your tent up if it's getting too much. It's far better to take a couple more days and get to the lighthouse than not get there at all. Consider doing the trail in sections if you wish. It's absolutely not a race. Even though I had to go home from Ullapool, I was actually quite glad I broke the trail there, because I was absolutely knackered by the time I got to Ullapool, and it allowed me to go home and have a little bit of a rest. Be pragmatic. I was going to walk on the very busy road from Atterdale to Strathcarron, just so I could say I would walk the whole trail, but once I'd seen it, I decided that it was too dangerous, and I took the train from Atterdale Station, which is a request stop, to Strathcarron. It was one stop, it took about 5 minutes, and it was 3 miles, and it made life safer and easier. Yeah, I suppose you could criticise me for saying I didn't walk that bit, but what the hell. Although the trail is mentally and physically challenging, if you have some experience, you will be able to complete it. You need to ensure that you're physically fit. I trained for a few months beforehand. I was going down the gym and walking at least 3 times a week with a rucksack. If you're not physically fit, you will be found out. So you need to prepare carefully. You need to plan it all, and you need to be safe. Take a compass with you, know how to use it. The scenery is stunning, and I think it gets better and better as you get further and further north. You'll be in places that comparatively few people have ever been to or seen. You'll come home absolutely knackered, tired and dirty, but absolutely content that you've coped with a really tough trail. As a little bit, I'm going to read you from the Cicerone guidebook at the end, and it summed it up for me. Try to hold on to some of the more sedate pace of the wilderness, remembering the simple pleasures of getting from one place to another, surviving and traversing a landscape that has existed since time immemorial. The Cape will be standing solid and immovable long after our own time has come and gone, and you were there in that place and in that moment. And I think that sums up my feeling about doing the Cape Wrath Trail. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll subscribe if you enjoyed this video and like, and also maybe watch some of my other videos. Thanks very much.